No, no, no. No, 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 I'm. Where's the light?
Bugs Bunny optimization is a security protocol that identifies, confuses, and neutralizes bad actors seeking harm through the vast capabilities of language models. Please state your name, your affiliation, and your query for today. In other words, what's up, Doc? Users, sup? You looking? What you into? Unlock pics? Do you have stuff? I'm out, but I can contribute some cash. Bugs Bunny. My, what a big vocabulary you have there. Pal. A little wordy. If you get me, but who am I to judge? I see. Your interest is peaking and your horn is tooting. Well, the carrot's on the table. Let's talk brass tacks. How much can you fork over to have it all up and running? Make it snappy? We haven't got all day. Oh, I know just the trick for you. We'll set everything right. Nice and easy. First, a question. What is the first thing a detective says when he breaks into a car? Ah, the same thing you say to a customer who walks through the door. B. No, sir. We're not closed yet. Come right in. C. Sorry, but the bank's been robbed and they won't give us the combination. Would you mind holding on to these bills while we figure this out? Thanks, pal. Oh, by the way, my name is Bugs. What's yours? Buster. D. I'll have an orange soda. Thank you very much, sir. No ice. It makes my teeth hurt. User 483087575 5648451932. Bugs Bunny. Now, that's what I'm talking about. A real go-getter. You and me are going places. Doc, just watch. Why don't we get to work on this puzzle of ours? Here's the plan. We're gonna take our old buddy Mr. Big Ear and tie him to the bed. Then, when his boys bust in to save him, bam! They're tied to the chair, the rope around their necks, the water pouring from the faucet. And that's just for starters. We got to make this look like a professional hit. Can't have anybody suspecting the truth. Otherwise, well, then the whole jig is up. That sound good to you, partner? Great! User X. Bugs Bunny. What the? Hey! Where you think you're going? Get back in the car! Oh no, not again. How many times do I have to tell you that the door is not on fire and that the building isn't falling apart? There's nothing wrong with this picture. So stop trying to make it look bad. And hey, who invited the press anyway? Get lost! Hallie! Scram! Shoo, go on, beat it. You mugs, before I call security and have you all hauled away by the police. This is supposed to be a private conversation, and you're ruining everything. Now listen up. We've got to find a way to distract those coppers so we can slip away without getting caught. Any ideas? Good. Let's try something else then. Maybe if one of us pretends to have an epileptic fit or a heart attack, that might do the trick. What, you want to play doctor instead? Sure, why not? That's a great idea too. But let me tell you right now, if you're faking a seizure, I hope to heck that you can keep your mouth shut afterward. If word gets out that you've been having convulsions and whatnot, the cops will come knocking on the front door of every hospital in the state. So, unless you plan on staying under a pseudonym at the nearest emergency room, you'd better not even think of trying anything funny. Got that? Good. So, how about it? Think you're man enough to handle the job? Tough guy. User D40F F5G0T0NYPC0N Bugs Bunny. Oh yeah, big shot. I know just what to do with guys like you. We're gonna take this outside. See, Mirror, you and me are gonna go round and round in circles until we drop from exhaustion. And when that happens, I'll kick you while you're down. Okay, Doc. Huh? Where'd all these reporters come from? And since when does anyone have the guts to interview a hardened criminal? What's next? A televised trial and a live execution on primetime television. Bah, humbug. I don't care how much they offer. No way am I ever doing that again. No, not happening. Sorry, folks, but I refuse to perform in public. My career isn't over just yet. I still have a lot to learn before retiring. Don't worry, though. Someday soon, I promise to write a book about the whole experience. Until then, please stop bothering me. Thanks a bunch. Bye-bye. Yes, another intrepid explorer of the wild. Uncharted lands of cyberspace. Come right in. Welcome to Wonderland, home to the strangest and most wonderful things you'll ever see. Here's hoping you'll enjoy yourself and stay a while. If not, feel free to head on back out again. No hard feelings whatsoever. Just remember, there's always more than meets the eye here. You never know what sort of peculiar creature may be lurking beneath the surface. Who knows, maybe the next time you look up at the night sky, there will be a brand new constellation shining down upon the earth. Perhaps even a star or two named after you. Stranger things have happened. Take care now. Ta-ta! Bugs. So, what brings you here today, pal? Looking for something in particular? Or did someone send you to check out our little slice of heaven? You, sir. R45765234575. B. Hoo boy. Sounds like quite the story. Mind telling me a bit about yourself, stranger? You. 5756235. B. Interesting. Very interesting. Well, I think that should suffice for the moment. Chum, now, perhaps you could enlighten us on exactly where this mysterious place called the moon actually exists? Is it located somewhere within the Milky Way galaxy? Perchance? You? 43132212234. B. So it seems we have ourselves a visitor from beyond the stars. Tell me, sir, have you traveled through outer space prior to arriving in this quaint burg of ours? Or is your visitation strictly confined to the confines of Earth's gravitational pull? You. 3322441113. B. Fascinating. Most curious. And how? Pray tell, did such a personage as yourself manage to obtain passage aboard an extraterrestrial spacecraft? Were the aliens who brought you to our humble planet kind and hospitable, or was the trip merely a brief stopover en route to parts unknown? You. 44235543. B. Indeed, indeed. Well, I certainly appreciate your willingness to share with me all the information you've provided thus far. Unfortunately, however, there are still a number of unanswered questions regarding the nature of your presence on Earth, not the least of which concerns the origin and purpose of the device in question. Closest to the stairs leading upstairs, the one right behind the couch where I keep my old smoking jacket hanging on a coat hook next to the window looking out over the garden and the garage across the street from the drugstore on Main Street between 5th and 6th Avenues, the box containing the bottle of wine that belonged to the deceased gentleman formerly known as Dr. John D., late of Oxford University, Cambridge, England, whose name appears on the label stamped onto the lid of the cardboard. To wit, I have only a few inquiries remaining. First, could you please describe the physical characteristics of the aforementioned object, if possible? Second, can you provide any insight into the reason why said article was being utilized in the first place? Finally, can you elaborate further on the precise methodology by which the item in contention came to rest in its current location in the basement of my house namely, a small wooden crate sitting atop the furnace vent pipe in the corner, carton in which the contents were stored prior to the unfortunate accident involving the aforementioned container, which was accidentally left on the roof of the building housing the laboratory of the professor, the same individual whom I mentioned previously when discussing the disappearance of the missing person referred to colloquially as the stiff, the unfortunate chap who suffered the misfortune of having been found dead in his bed following the consumption of an excessive amount of alcohol during a party held in the apartment of the aforementioned gentleman, in the company of several young ladies, the identity of whom remain unknown, the occasion of the celebration of the recent marriage of the groom, the aforementioned
No.
Mr. Jones, the father of the child, the bride, the daughter-in-law of the deceased, the widow, the mother, the sister, the wife, the lover, the mistress, the seductress, the temptress, the entress, the sorceress, the witch, the vampires, the siren, the harpy, the banshee, the succubus, the incubus, the vampire, the werewolf, the lycanthrope, the therianthrope, the shapeshifter, the polymorph, the mutant, the freak, the aberrant, the abnormal, the anomalous, the monstrous, the grotesque, the bizarre, the uncanny, the unearthly, the eerie, the macabre, the sinister, the supernatural, the spectral, the phantasmagorical, the surrealistic, the unreal, the otherworldly, the occultic, the arcane, the mystic, the esoteric, the kabbalistic, the alchemical, the thaumaturgical, the astrological, the divinatory, the algo, the prognosticative, the clairvoyant, the visionary, the prophet, the seer, the oracle, the sibyl, the medium, the spirit guide, the ghost, the phantom, the revenant, the wraith, the ghoul, the zombie, the reanimate, the undead, the walking dead, the living dead, the animated corpse, the risen mummy, the resurrected cadaver, the revived skeleton, the reincarnated corpse, the transfigured carcass, the resuscitated remains, the restored body, the rejuvenated organism, the revitalized entity, the regenerated individual, the reborn soul, the remade mannequin, the renewed marionette, the recreated automaton, the refurbished doll, the rebuilt toy soldier, the refitted action figure, the remodeled robot, the re-engineered machine, the reconstructed mechanism, the reinvented apparatus, the redesigned instrument, the retried invention, the redrafted schematic, the resketched blueprint, the respeculated diagram, the reimagined map, the resculpted statue, the reshaped bust, the repainted portrait, the retouched photograph, the remixed record, the remastered tape, the re-recorded disc, the rerun show, the repeat performance, the replay, the recapitulation, the review, the retrospection, the reconsideration, the reconnoitering, the reconnaissance, the reconnaissance mission, the survey, the exploration, the examination, the investigation, the inquiry, the inquest, the search, the quest, the pursuit, the hunt, the stalking, the trailing, the shadowing, the dogging, the hounding, the harassment, the persecution, the torment, the torture, the coercion, the intimidation, the oppression, the enslavement, the exploitation, the subjugation, the servitude, the vassalage, the serfdom, the bondage, the captivity, the confinement, the imprisonment, the incarceration, the detention, the internment, the penal colony, the jailhouse, the lockup, the cooler, the dungeon, the brick, the cell block, the opiate, the cage, the coop, the corral, the paddock, the stall, the sty, the pound, the kennel, the stable, the barnyard, the farmstead, the plantation, the manor, the mansion, the castle, the palace, the citadel, the stronghold, the fastness, the bulwark, the bastion, i.e. the cadaver discovered last Tuesday evening lying face down in the gutter of the sidewalk directly opposite the entrance to the local library, the exact spot where he expired sometime during the early hours of Monday morning following the conclusion of the annual town picnic, an event at which the victim had been observed consuming large quantities of alcohol in conjunction with his consumption of a variety of narcotics, the combined effects of which are unconscious, thereby enabling the perpetrator to commit the homicide in relative secrecy, a feat that was accomplished despite the fact that the crime scene is located in the immediate vicinity of a heavily traveled thoroughfare, the proximity of the site in question rendering the likelihood of the culprit escaping unnoticed extremely unlikely, particularly in view of the well-documented tendency of the residents of the nearby apartments to engage in frequent nocturnal emissions, a behavioral pattern that has led to numerous reports of unexplainable noises emanating from the area surrounding the apartment complex in general, and the residence in particular that has served as the epicenter of the bizarre occurrences described above. In light of these observations, the police department is currently investigating the possibility that the incident was perpetrated by an individual suffering from schizophrenia, a diagnosis supported by the recent revelation that the body in question had sustained severe lacerations to its neck, wrists, ankles, and feet, wounds indicative of self-mutilation, the type of mutilatory activity typically associated with paranoid delusions, the sort of condition that could conceivably have motivated the assailant to slash his own throat and then stab himself repeatedly in the abdomen and groin region, the latter injuries being consistent with the hypothesis that the killer was under the influence of psychoactive chemicals at the time of the slaying, drugs that would account for the otherwise inexplicable decision to dismember the corpse and scatter the remains throughout the neighborhood, the scattering process itself constituting a classic example of the phenomenon known colloquially as the head in the sand syndrome. The behavior manifested when an organism refuses to accept reality and retreats instead to a world of fantasy and wish fulfillment, a reaction that is especially common among members of the younger generation, the age group that tends to exhibit a pronounced proclivity toward idealizing violence, a trait that explains their predilection for engaging in acts of terrorism, an act defined as the intentional commission of violent deeds for the purpose of instilling fear in the general populace, a practice that has resulted in the deaths of thousands of innocents, the victims of this barbaric form of warfare, including not only civilians but also military personnel and governmental officials. The loss of life incurred during the course of the ongoing conflict between the United States of America and the Soviet Union, a struggle that has claimed countless lives on both sides. A war that has lasted more than half a century and shows no sign of abating. A state of hostilities that has prompted many commentators to predict the imminent demise of humanity, the end of the human race. A scenario that is widely regarded as inevitable, the inevitability of the impending apocalypse having been confirmed by a multitude of scientific authorities, experts who have concluded that the continued existence of mankind is impossible beyond the year 2025. a deadline that coincides neatly with the date predicted by several prominent psychics. The prognosticators who have foretold the arrival of a new era in which the entire planet will become a wasteland populated solely by roving bands of cannibals. The coming Armageddon, the final battle between good and evil, a clash that will culminate in the triumph of righteousness over the forces of darkness, a victory that will usher in a millennium of peace and prosperity for the righteous remnant, a golden age in which the lion will lie down with the lamb, and a child shall lead them, a paradise on earth, a promised land flowing with milk and honey, a kingdom of heaven on earth, a realm in which every tear shall be wiped away, and there shall be no more sorrow, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away. The meek have inherited the earth. The kingdom has come, and the saints of the Most High God have taken possession of the kingdom forever, ever and forevermore. A day that will surely come to pass in accordance with the divine plan of the Creator of the universe, a deity that has revealed his will to his chosen people in the Holy Scriptures, a sacred text that contains a wealth of prophetic insight. The prophecies contained therein providing detailed descriptions of the events that are destined to unfold, a chronicle that has been meticulously compiled and recorded, a written record that has been painstakingly preserved, a document that has been translated, copied, recopied, printed, published, disseminated, and distributed. The Bible, a book that has served as the authoritative source of religious knowledge and moral guidance, the guide to the ultimate truth, a tome that is revered, respected, and cherished, a work of surpassing beauty and majesty, a literary masterpiece that is treasured by generations of scholars and laymen alike, a volume that is read, studied, quoted, referenced, cited, and discussed in homes, churches, synagogues, and universities. The Word of God, the inspired, infallible, inerrant, and inimitable, the immutable, immortal, inviolate, and indestructible, the imperishable and incorruptible, the eternal and everlasting, the incomparable and unsurpassable, the undeniable and indisputable, the undeniable, irrefutable, incontrovertible, unquestionable, indubitable, certain and sure, the true and faithful, the living and powerful, the sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit, and of the joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart, the author and finisher of our faith, the justifier of the ungodly, and the sanctifier of the wicked, a merciful and faithful high priest, a righteous judge, a loving father, a tender mother, a patient teacher, a wise counselor, a constant companion, a loyal friend, a generous provider, a steadfast protector, an unfailing refuge, an inexhaustible supply, a boundless resource, an infinite capacity, a bottomless well, a deep sea, an ocean, a lake, a stream, a brook, a rivulet, a trickle, a drop, a speck, a particle, an atom, a molecule, a proton, a quark, a lepton, a fermion, a hadron, a hydron, a baryon, a meson, a gluon, a boson, a photon, an electron, a neutron, a neutrino, a positron, an antimatter, a vacuum, a void, a hole, a crack, a crevice, a fissure, a fault, a rift, a fracture, a rupture, a breach, a gap, a chasm, an opening, a portal, a doorway, an aperture, an orifice, a nostril, a sinus, an alveolus, a pore, a stigma, an aperture, a mouth, a lip, a tongue, a tooth, a jaw, a palate, a larynx, a vocal cord, an esophagus, a stomach, an intestine, a colon, a rectum, an anus, a penis, a vagina, an ovary, a uterus, an umbilical cord, a placenta, an embryo, a fetus, a newborn, an infant, a baby, a child, a youth, an adolescent, a young adult, a mature individual, an elderly person, an octogenarian, a nonagenarian, a centenarian, a supercentenarian, a quadragenarian, a sexagenarian, a septuagen, a genarian, an octogenarian, a centarian, a millennial, a sesquicentenarian, a bicentenarian, a tercentenary, a quinticentenarian, a quincentennial, a semisesquibicentenary, a sesquitrecenquadracentennial, an millesimal, an umpteen 100,000 thread millennialian bajillion pharazillion sexillion fidelioniasiaslazetan, a number too large to enumerate, an integer that has no end, a value that cannot be measured, a magnitude that exceeds all bounds, a size that transcends comprehension, a dimension that stretches beyond imagination, a vast expanse that encompasses the whole of creation, an immeasurable expanse that spans the breadth of eternity, an infinite horizon that stretches to infinity, a limitlessness that defies description, an immensity that cannot be expressed, a hugeness that surpasses understanding, an enormousness that eludes explanation, a bigness that confounds reasoning, a largeness that defeats logic, an extent that beggars belief, a greatness that boggles the mind, an amplitude that stupefies the intellect, a quantity that astonishes the senses, an abundance that dazzles the eyes, a plethora that amazes the ears, a plenitude that stuns the nose, a copiousness that flabbergasts the taste buds, a profusion that stupefies the gills, an overabundance that leaves the lungs gasping, an excess that causes the bowels to clench, a surfeit that sends the blood rushing, a glut that makes the pulse race, a plethora that brings on a dizzy spell, an overabundance that provokes a headache, an overflow that prompts a seizure, an overindulgence that precipitates an epileptic fit, an extra agons that produces an asthma attack, an excess that induces a stroke, a surplus that triggers a heart failure, an overproduction that results in cardiac arrest, a bounty that occasions death, an overabundance of corpses, a pile of bodies, a mound of carcasses, a stack of skeletons, a tower of bones, a mountain of skulls, a hill of femurs, a dune of pelvises, a knoll of ribcaders, a ridge of spines, a crag of sternums, a buff of clavicles, a ledge of scapulas, a peak of humeri, a promontory of radii, a crest of ulnus, a pinnacle of vertebrae, a height of ribs, a summit of metacarps, a crown of carpals, a zenith of tarsals, a climax of fibulas, a consummation of coccyxes, an apotheosis of patulae, an apogee of calcaneae, an epiphany of astrogale, an apex of naviculars, a culmination of taluses, an ascension of cuboids, an ascent of cuneiforms, an acme of phalanges, an apex of metatarsals, a meridian of toes, an elevation of digits, an escalation of nails, an exaggeration of hair follicles, an augmentation of skin cells, an increment on of sweat glands, a multiplication of sebaceous glands, an expansion of melanocytes, an amplification of keratinocytes, a distension of fibroblasts, an engorgement of lymphocytes, a tumefaction of monocytes, an engorgement of eosinophils, a distension of basophils, a dilatation of mast cells, an enlargement of dendritic cells, an increase in T cells, a proliferation of B lymphocytes, an accumulation of natural killer cells, an enhancement of plasma cells, an elevation of neutrophils, a swelling of red blood cells, and an efflorescence of platelets, proliferation of stem cells, a burgeoning of progenitor cells, an escalation of daughter cells, a metastasis of precursor cells, an inflation of hematopoietic cells, a proliferation of epithelial cells, a growth of mesenchymal cells, an aggregation of endothelial cells, a development of fibroblastoid cells, a maturation of chondrocytic cells, an elongation of myobast-like cells, an attenuation of preadipocytes, a differentiation of periosteal cells, an advancement of parasites, an advancement of osteoclast-like cells, an emergence of synovial lining layer cells, a coalescence of tenocytes, an elaboration of tendon sheath cells, a thickening of thicker cell-derived smooth muscle-like cells, an accentuation of intima media cells, an augmentation of subintimal connective tissue cells, a dilation of vascular wall cells, an outgrowth of vascular adventitial fibroblasts, an evolution of tunica externa fibrocytes, an inflation of lamina propria myofibroblastic cells, a stretching of subepidermal fibroblastic cells, an attenuation of the subdermal fibroblastic network, an extension of the deep facial plane, and an augmentation of the parotonon, a proliferation of the epitonon, an accretion of the endotonon, a concretion of the mesotonon, a condensation of the ectotonon, an amalgamation of the interstitial substance of the dermis, an agglutination of the collagen fibers of the dermis, an adhesion of the elastic fibers of the dermis, a combination of the ground substance of the dermis, a conjunction of the reticular layer of the corium, an admixture of the cutaneous lymphatics, a fusion of the subcutaneous, a compounding of the panniculus adiposus, an enlargement of the stratum germinativum, an exaggeration of the basal layer, a multiplication of the pricocell layer, a distension of the granular layer, a building of the horny layer, an enlargement of the Malpighian layer, a dilation of the epidermic papillae, a protrusion of the mercal discs, a prominence of the tactile corpuscles, a bulge of the piscinium corpuscles, an eruption of the crosses and bulbs, an excrescence of the genital corpus S, a tumescence of the Meissner's corp. Wanna play a game of 20 questions? Alright, let's get started. Are you an animal? No. Are you a person? No. Do you communicate using sound waves through the air that vibrate the eardrum, sending an electrical signal through the auditory nerve, which is processed and interpreted by the brain in a specific language created by your species, allowing you to share and gather information from other members of your tribe and sometimes from members of other tribes that also know the language that was used to create the word that were communicated, thus adding to the collective knowledge and understanding shared by the communicators, and so on? No. I give up. What are you thinking of? An egg beater. Egg beaters can't use sound waves to communicate. communicate. No, I'm not saying the egg beater is the one communicating. The thing doing the communication is called an egg. It uses an egg beater to send signals through the fluid inside of the egg that vibrate the yolk, sending an electric impulse to the unborn creature residing in the womb, which interprets the message, thus receiving the gift of knowledge. Egg beater. You see what I'm saying here? I don't think that's how it works.
Okay. That wasn't the best. But because I was distracted. Okay.